Let us work maybe a little more on small details like lips and eyes and stuff. Let's start with the lips. Maybe we need more subdivision levels for this instance. Seems like that we are limited by the resolution. Let's dynamesh it even smaller. Soon it's time to start work on organic form. So we're not going to make exactly like this blockout because this polishing takes so much time. But the main idea is to make organic results, so we don't want to spend too much time on it. But still, we want to go as close as possible to the result on the left side. Okay, vermilion border. Vermilion basically that's the red part of the mouth or red part of the lip. It is kind of like the inside structure visible on outside, and the border between this red and the facial skin, that's called vermilion border. It is important to mark this vermilion border because it helps us to navigate, and it also has its own shape. So basically if you look at the upper lip, so it's wider on top and narrowing down when it goes to the corner of the mouth, and here it is vice versa. If you look here, so this is the superior part and this is also a superior part, the upper part. So it starts from the corner as very wide and then it narrows down. It seems like that we need to put some volume here. With the clay buildup, let's add some volume here. So we have space for dividing lip into the anterior and inside plane. Basically, there's two planes. Each lip have two planes, anterior plane and the inside plane. And it is very important to mark the difference between these two planes. Basically, as I mentioned before, this facet, this plane, basically is responsible of the thickness of the lips. So this is the Cupid's bow, basically this kind of like the most famous part of the lip. On a male, you can make it smaller or less pronounced, like on a female. But again, if we talk about attractivity, then the Cupid's bow is attractive not only male have attraction to the female Cupid's bow, but it also female they do like Cupid's bow. I already mentioned these philtrum columns as like a two columns, the 1 and 2 columns. So you want to mark them. They are smaller on the lip and then they become wider when they're approaching the nose. And in reality, those columns they're kind of sliding inside in the nostril. But that's like when we're going to work more on organic result, organic shape, then I will explain you the connection between the nose and the philtrum columns. But for now, let's leave it here like this. So we need some space for the thickness of the nose. You see there's like a alar part of the nose or ala. So you see this ala is actually pretty wide. So let's mark this first and then we see how much space do we have left here. We start from the middle and then go outside because we are limited in space here, but we can easily add space here. So if you want to measure, then it's much smarter to measure from inside and then go. It seems to me that this nostril is very wide, or at least it is too wide, not maybe very wide, but kind of wide. So let's set up the plane for the nostril, the lateral border. Yes, and now it seems like that this is thin and this is thick. We need to add some volume to the nostrils, wing to the nose. It seems like that we need to add more of the volume and also maybe pull a little bit down like this and add some volume. Okay, let's rotate around and see. It looks good to me. And as you can see, the ala is separated here. In reality, of course, these separations have to be, blurred, have to be softened, because in reality, you don't have, you have the sharp kind of like this alar groove here, but then it kind of fades out. But we draw it all the way down, and then later on we will, get rid of it. Dynamish. And there is also, talking about the cartilage of the nose, the cartilage of the nose has dome here. Basically, sometimes on some people you can see it's like a left and right dome of the major cartilage. So basically this tip of the nose is usually higher than we think. This kind of extends much higher than we think. So the dome and the back of the nose, this is the back of the nose, and it ends here with the plane. It's some kind of plane here. Sometimes there is a problem with the thickness of the nose, same like with the lips, because we don't add enough planes, and then it looks kind of thin. But in reality, nose is much thicker, even on female. But of course, you have to be careful on a female nose. You don't want to make it too thick, because then it makes it the look will be more masculine. So you see that the shape of the back of the nose, it's not like completely straight, even though we sculpted it straight, but there is this transition between this thin and then becomes wide and then thin again. This transition is actually, in reality, that's the bone meets the cartilage. So this is the cartilage part, and that's the bone part, the nasal bone. So that's the widest part of the back of the nose, or some call them bridge. But in reality, in medical terminology, the bridge is this area, basically in between the eyes. That's more the bridge part. But it's not a big problem if you call it bridge, because it's a bridge between the glabella, the area between the eyebrows, and the bridge between the back of the nose. So that's why I call it bridge. This is the side of the nose, lateral side of the nose. And as you can see, this lateral side of the nose meets the nasolabial fat. Sometimes this transition is visible. So let's mark it like I drew it here. Transition between the nasolabial fat and the lateral side of the nose. Let's keep working on the lips. So we have this vermilion border, and it seems like the size of the lips is actually bigger. The lips are more full. So maybe we need to add some volume. It seems like that this area and this is maybe it's okay. And as you can see, the vermilion border creates almost like a platform here. And this lower lip vermilion sits on top of this platform. Some people even say that there's like 2 spheres hidden inside in the lower lip and 1 sphere hidden in upper lip. But sometimes it's not the case, because sometimes you have to see the split. There's like 2 spheres on the upper lip. And actually that's a very common thing, to have this upper lip split. And it's the reason because we have 2 vermilion, not 2 philtrum columns. Also, they meet these top points of the Cupid's bow, and also it's kind of logical that you don't have 1 sphere here, but like 1 sphere that is split in 2 or even 2, because it's a seam. Because we have this axial symmetry in the body, and the philtrum area, basically this area is the last to be fused. When you are developing as an embryon, then this part basically is the last that fuses. The left and right side kind of closes, and that's why sometimes when you open your mouth you can see there's these 2. On animals it's always 2. On other mammals like cats and dogs, you can always see this is not like 1 so-called tubercle, but like 2 tubercles, or 1 which is kind of split, and then you have 2 tubercles on the lower lip. The lower lip columns, basically, as you can see, these 2 columns, they supporting the vermilion platform here. And the character of the chin is not that I really like. So let's change it with the move tool. That will be faster. Let's change the character of the chin. Seems to me that it's not exactly like we're planning. Okay, let's try to maybe draw these left and right chin shapes. And now they all are kind of like a separate, but in next maybe, or in some upcoming videos, I will be I will be smoothing out and joining the forms, because in life you rarely can see the separation between like one structure and another. Of course, there is some kind of, you can notice some separation, but not that obvious. So basically, you see it as a one structure. Even though on a male portrait you see it more, the separation, on a female you see it less. And that's the problem with sculpting children and female, because the structures are less defined and therefore very hard to sculpt, to understand the form, because it's like a flawless one shape. And as you can see, there's this structure, this form in between has a different character. So like this. And these facets that I make, these planes that I make, they make a lot of sense actually. But of course you want to be careful not to leave them too much, especially as I mentioned, if you sculpt like the children or female, because every angularity gives more masculinity to the portrait. Every angularity brings the masculinity. So this basically, if you even if you look at the skull of the female, you already can see that they are more gracile, more soft, more rounded. You don't even need to have a soft tissue. By looking at the skull, you can guess what type of face was when the person was alive. It also applies to the males that are more soft and more kind of like a feminine. Not every male is masculine looking. Some male are more feminine, and you can guess it. And that's the problem with the physical anthropology and forensic anthropology, because when they find the skull, the person, they cannot 100%, they cannot be 100% sure is it like the male or female skull, unless they don't do they don't have this DNA data. Because by looking at the skull, even if you have these all the masculine features, it is very hard to say is this skull belong to the male or female. If we look at the other bones, like pelvic bones, then yes, we can say it with more certainty. But by looking at the skull, it is really challenging. That's why you have only some percentage of certainty, but cannot be sure. But the thing that you can say is that the person is more masculine or more feminine. Because if the person is more feminine, you have smaller, also the skeletal muscles are weaker, they are smaller. And the skeletal muscles, they determine not only the size of the soft tissue, but skeletal muscles also determine the size of the bones. Because the very soft and small and very feminine muscles don't need heavy and robust bones. So that would be waste of the resources if the body would build and maintain very robust skeletal system, but in the same time being very soft and gracile. So there's something wrong with this cheekbone. This under eye area was dismissed here. So this is under eye area, and this is the lower eyelid, and then there's this under eye area, and then only after that comes the cheekbone. So we have to reconsider this area. I sometimes do when I draw the line of the structure that I want, even though there is no form, but I just draw the line. And when the line is established, then I can make the plane, because this sometimes even draw with the poly paint. And poly paint kind of helps me to organize forms. I just paint the line, and then maybe I can even demonstrate it. So I turn on the RGB, switch the color, make it small. So lazy mouse. So I sometimes what I do, I draw with the poly paint the line, and then when the line is there, then it's easier to control it. Because if it's just like the graphical line, if it's not like the painted line, sometimes you lose it, and then when you lose it, it's very hard to get back on the track. So you kind of always have this painted sketch. It's almost like when you carve the stone, so you use the marker to keep control on the form. So you always renew these markers. So that's the trick that I use. So polypaint is also very useful in sculpting, not only in creating textures or creating the colors, but it's also very handy in terms of sculpting. So you have more control over the shape when you use polypaint. Again, you have to remember to turn it around and see from all the angles, is the form that you created close to what you expected. Maybe clean it with edge polish. And as you can see, it says Z intensity only 3, because when you have more than 3, then like it's hard to control this polishing process, almost like a sandpaper. When you take the sandpaper and put it on a piece of wood, and then you know polish, like gently polish the surface without like the heavy form change, just like little bit, and then you still have control over the edges. So soon it's time to go to the more organic look. So let's maybe correct the edges, and we'll be ready for organic sculpting.